Hi, everybody. As librarians, you all are already pretty expert on information literacy. You get a whole lot of it in your certification programs, and you spend a lot of your professional life teaching information literacy. But I wanted to share with you a slightly different viewpoint on information literacy that I found it's from the Oregon Technology and Education Council. And their idea is that when we're talking information literacy, it's not one thing. It's really operating along a continuum from data through information and then knowledge, and finally our target would be wisdom. And that information literacy involves putting the information into action in some way, involves using it. It's not just about collecting it. So let's look at a few of these terms and distinctions. Okay, wisdom is the final goal, and this is a quote from Robert Sternberg, a really well-known educational psychologist. He says, "Wisdom is the application of intelligence and experience toward the attainment of a common good. This attainment involves a balance among intrapersonal, that's me, interpersonal, me and my friends, my family, and extrapersonal, outside of us, interests, over the short and long term. Thus, wise people look out not just for themselves, but for all toward whom they have any responsibility." And of course, the question is, where does our responsibility end? Who is our neighbor? So, an example from our workshop that we just talked about today is data. Now, data is just facts, figures. A piece of data is that in 2013, 45.3 million people in the US lived in poverty, 14.5% of the population. Information takes that data and interprets it. What does that data mean? What does it mean to live in poverty? Well, for a family of four, this meant in 2013 an income under $23,834. Under 15,000 and some odd dollars for a family of two, and under almost 12,000 for a family of one. Okay, so you can just collect data, but then it doesn't really make any sense until you interpret it and turn it into information. But then there's another step where you start to take several pieces of information, or you start to get into the lived experience of people that gets you to the knowledge stage, understanding just what it would mean to live in that kind of income situation. And we did that by watching the Tammy videos. But then there's a final step, wisdom, that takes that data, that information, that knowledge that you've got, and decides how best to use it for the common good. So in this case, wisdom would acknowledge that helping the many people in this country that are like Tammy and her children ultimately is a concern of us all, because it helps us all. And it's also part of our social contract in this country. And wisdom considers how such situations are perpetuated. It doesn't just look at Tammy's situation and assume that that's kind of an isolated, you can analyze that as itself, but looks at the larger social fabric. What's causing that? Why is it that somebody is working for 10 years at Burger King and still working for minimum wage? And how can we best help people like Tammy and her kids while preserving and enhancing their basic human dignity and agency? So wisdom not only seeks to help, but looks at the broader context and seeks to help helpfully, if that makes any sense, without imposing yourself on them. It doesn't rush in, and several of you mentioned that, you know, you could get a bunch of people together to clean up their surroundings and stuff, but you know, is that really going to help? That the point of wisdom is to make those kind of decisions. Let's look at another really common example from education. Data. The 2015 average score on the 4th grade milestone test in reading for school X was 483. That's a data point. When you first hear that, it doesn't really mean anything to you, because you don't know what a score of 483 means. Okay? You may not even know what a milestone test is, etc. Okay, information puts meaning into that. That 483 score was 22 points below the state average. And it indicates that many fourth graders in School X were only beginning learners in reading still. Okay, so now you have some information, but a lot of people stop there. And we can look that kind of stuff up on the web all the time. But getting to this next stage, knowledge or understanding, that's a little harder because you have to find other information. You have to put this information in context and compare it to other things. So knowledge and understanding in this case is that School X is in a district with a recent inflow of Hispanic families coming to work at the local chicken processing plants. And so one reason for School X's low scores is that over 85% of their students qualify for free or reduced lunch, and over 50% English is not their home language. Okay, so now we understand what's going on here, but again, this is not wisdom if we just stop there. Because if we stop there, we either say, well, you can't expect School X to get any better given the situation, which is not useful to those kids. Or we say, well, School X ought to be doing better. If they just tried, they could do better. It doesn't matter that the kids are poor and English is a challenge for them. So we tend to, if we just get to that stage, we tend to go for simplistic solutions. You know, people just need to fix it. Wisdom takes it one step further and says, helping the children in School X develop solid skills in standard English while respecting and fostering their home cultures and languages are common goods for which we're all responsible. We say it's not about just the teachers in School X. It's not just about parents or the taxpayers in School X. It's something that as a society we need to look at. So wisdom considers issues of pedagogy. Are there different things the teachers could be doing? And resources. Are there more resources needed and from whom should they come? But wisdom kind of looks a little broader and says, well, are the tests, the milestone tests, really good ways to measure what this population knows? And why are so many poor and English language learner kids concentrated in School X? What causes that? And of course, it could be the way the district has carved up the catchment zones for the schools. And that's not at all unusual. One school will kind of be designated the place all those kids go. It could be a fleeing tax base due to trade agreements so that there's not enough industry, not enough jobs, that kind of thing in the district in School X, that School X is in. And then we start getting into things like national economic policy and elections and things like that. You know, it has a lot to do with segregated housing. In this country, more than most advanced countries, our housing is very segregated by class. Rich people tend to live one place, well-off middle-class people tend to live another place, poor people tend to be concentrated in certain places, and we do that by the way we zone things and also the kinds of houses we build in different places and what we make available to people. So we start looking at all those things, and all of a sudden School X's low test scores become interesting and indicative of a lot of different things in society that we need to look at. So that's what I wanted to talk about, and the reason I wanted to talk about it is because if we're teaching kids information literacy, sure, we need to show them how to find facts, data. We need to show them how to interpret that data into information. What does this mean? What does this number mean? What does this statistic mean? What does it mean when the author says such and such? Okay. But we need to take them these next two steps as well. We need to give them, and the only way to do that, you can't tell someone how to be wise or gain understanding. You have to offer it to them over and over. You have to ask them the right questions and give them reasons and opportunities to do this. So if a kid in fourth grade was asked to write a report on poverty in the United States, okay, we can all teach them how to find the data. We can probably get to the information not that hard, although that's hard for kids to compare and figure out what a score of 43 means and, you know, what a milestone test is and all that. So that's a skill, and that's a hard thing. But then if they stop there and say, well, this many people poor, this is what's going on, and these are the scores, and okay, that's not terribly useful to anybody. You have to go another step and say, well, why? Why is this happening? Or what does this mean to the people involved in this situation? Okay? And then you got to go that last step. And that's what we did too. Today we said, what can we do? You know, what can we do about these things? And that's always the step you have to take. And I think one of the things we've forgotten to teach our children is that as citizens of this society, it is partly their job to figure out what can they do about the things that they see around them that are not for the common good, that are not right. And I think we lose that totally in school when we focus totally on tests and things. So I just wanted to give you that different way of looking at information literacy that kind of fascinated me. And thank you very much.